RollerCoaster Tycoon is one of those games that seems simple at first, but once you dive in, you see how brilliant it really is. It's more than just a theme park simulator. It's a story about one man's creativity, obsession with detail, and love for building things that make people happy. I remember the first time I saw the game running on a friend's computer back in the early 2000s. Tiny pixelated guests were walking around, screaming as they rode massive roller coasters, eating way too many virtual burgers and throwing up everywhere. It looked so fun that I begged my mom to get the game for me. But at the time, I had no idea that behind all of the fun chaos was the work of a single programmer named Chris Sawyer. Now this is where the story begins, a game made by one man. Chris Sawyer wasn't a big game studio. He was just one guy from Scotland who loved programming and simulation games. Before RollerCoaster Tycoon, he had already made a few transport themed titles like Transport Tycoon, which let players build roads, trains, and shipping routes. Those games had a loyal following, but nothing close to the fame RollerCoaster Tycoon would achieve. Sawyer wrote almost the entire game himself in assembly language. In case you don't know, that's a programming language so low level that most developers won't even touch it. It's incredibly hard to write in, but it makes the game run faster even on old computers of the late 90s. The fact that he did this nearly alone is part of what makes RollerCoaster Tycoon legendary. He didn't even start out planning to make a theme park simulator. He was actually working on a sequel to Transport Tycoon. But during a trip to an amusement park, he became fascinated with roller coasters, the way they twisted, turned, and thrilled people. And that trip sparked something in him. Have you ever had one of those moments where you see something and it sparks an idea that you can't shake? Well, that's what happened to Sawyer. So he decided to take his passion of programming and turn it into something new. A game about managing and building an amusement park. The first RollerCoaster Tycoon released in 1999 for PC. It didn't have flashy graphics or big name marketing, it just showed up quietly. But word spread fast. Players loved how real the parks felt. You could build paths, food stands, rides, and of course, your own roller coasters piece by piece. What made it special wasn't just the building though, it was how alive the game felt. Guests had emotions. They would cheer if rides felt exciting and throw up if they were too intense. You had to think about park layout, prices, keeping it clean, and customer satisfaction. It was part strategy, part creativity, and part chaos. I remember spending hours trying to make the perfect coaster, only to watch guests avoid it because it was too scary and too intense. So I'd lower the speed or shorten the drops just to make them ride it. You know, it felt personal, like I was running my own tiny world. And that's what made RollerCoaster Tycoon so special. It didn't just simulate a park, it simulated joy, frustration, and pride. One of the things that made the game stand out was its charm. The graphics were isometric and pixelated, but they had personality. The tiny guests with their colorful shirts and them having their own feelings made you care about them. You could even click on them to see what they were thinking. Sometimes I laugh reading their thoughts. I'm hungry, I'm lost, this park is great. It gave the game a sense of humor that still feels timeless. And the sounds, the coaster screams, the splashes from water rides, and even the background music created an atmosphere that pulled you in. Even today, those sounds can bring a wave of nostalgia. There was no online multiplayer, no fancy 3D graphics, no microtransactions, just pure gameplay that let your imagination run wild. After the success of the first game, 2 expansion packs followed. Corkscrew Follies and Loopy Landscapes. These added new rides, scenery, and challenges, and the fans, they couldn't get enough. Then in 2002, RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 arrived. It didn't change much visually, but it gave players more flexibility and tools to design parks. You could build bigger coasters, create custom scenarios, and even share your parks online. It also introduced a scenario editor, which let players craft their own challenges. Now for a creative kid, that was a dream come true. The second game still used Sawyer's coding style, tight, efficient, and fast. And this will be the last time that he would directly program a RollerCoaster Tycoon game himself. When RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 came out in 2004, the franchise changed directions. This time, it was made by Frontier Developments with Sawyer serving as a consultant. It moved into 3D for the first time. For many fans, including myself, that was both exciting and weird. Seeing your rides from a first-person view was amazing. You could actually ride your coasters, but it also lost a bit of that old-school charm. But still, RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 was a solid evolution of the series. It added day-night cycles, fireworks, and water parks. It gave players freedom to design every inch of their parks in a way that earlier games couldn't. But something about the simplicity of the first two games was hard to beat. There was magic in those tiny pixel parks. Over time, RollerCoaster Tycoon became one of the most successful simulation games of all time. It inspired countless other games like Theme Park World, Parkatech, and Planet Coaster all owe something to it. Even decades later, people still play the originals. There's an open source project called OpenRCT2 that updates the classic game for modern computers. It adds multiplayer and keeps the community alive. Now that says something powerful about the game's design, because when a game can last 25 years and still feel fun, that means that game was made with care. And I still find myself going back to the game at times, building parks late at night, listening to the guests scream as they fly down a hill. I mean, it's relaxing. It's like digital meditation. Chris Sawyer didn't chase fame after RollerCoaster Tycoon took off. He stayed quiet, preferring to let the game speak for itself. That's rare today when most creators are public figures. He once said he was surprised by how big the game became. He made it because he loved the idea, not because he thought it would sell millions. Maybe that's why it turned out so well. It came from passion, not profit. That's something worth remembering. Some of the best games ever made came from people just following their curiosity. And look what happened. Millions of players, decades of fan-made content, and a legacy that still inspires developers today.